The park ranger thought he found normal frog eggs inside a forest pond, but when he discovered what they actually were, he turned pale and shut down the entire area. Scott Michaels had been a park ranger for over 17 years. He'd seen black bears wander too close to campsites, guided hikers out of dangerous storms, and rescued injured owls from icy branches, but nothing in his experience, not even the old legends told by the locals, could have prepared him for what he discovered one quiet morning in Oakwood Reserve. It was just after sunrise when Scott began his routine patrol along the edge of the forest's largest pond. A low mist hugged the surface of the water, and the silence was broken only by the distant calls of birds waking up to the day. Everything seemed normal until he reached the northern shore. There, floating just below the surface, was a strange mass. At first glance he assumed it was a large clutch of frog eggs, but as he knelt for a closer look, a wave of unease passed through him. The eggs were enormous, far larger than anything he'd documented before. Some were nearly the size of golf balls. Their membranes were thick and unusually clear, revealing something inside that didn't look amphibian. He leaned closer and noticed faint twitching movements, too developed, too rhythmic, almost coordinated. Scott stood up slowly, his instinct suddenly on high alert. He marked the location on his GPS and took a sample using a sterile container from his field pack. He didn't touch the water. He didn't disturb the rest of the map. Back at the ranger station, he placed the sealed container into a cooled case and made a call, not to the local conservation office, but directly to a regional wildlife lab he had worked with on a few rare species cases. He knew something was wrong. He didn't know what, but something about those eggs didn't feel natural. 3 specialists arrived the following morning, 2 biologists, and 1 environmental toxicologist. Scott led them back to the pond and showed them the eggs, which were still floating in quiet cluster. The team worked in silence, gathering samples and taking readings, their faces tense with concentration. Back at their mobile lab unit, they ran tests, scans, DNA analysis. Scott waited outside, pacing slowly. Hours passed. Finally, one of the biologists emerged from the van. Her face was pale, her voice shaking. "You need to shut down the area around the pond," she said. "Now, no people, no animals, nothing gets near that water." Scott blinked. "What's in the eggs?" She hesitated, then replied, "We don't fully know, but they're not frogs, and whatever they are, they're growing fast. Too fast." The eggs weren't native. In fact, their genetic profile didn't match any known species on record. Parts of the DNA sequence resembled amphibians, but others aligned with marine invertebrates found only in deep-sea trench. More alarming still, the embryos inside had developed rudimentary limbs. Not legs, not fins, something else. And those movements, they weren't random. The team suspected some kind of neural synchronization. It was as if the creatures inside were responding to each other. Or worse. Scott didn't hesitate. He contacted the head ranger, filed a formal emergency closure notice, and deployed warning signs and perimeter tape. The pond was sealed off within the hour. Drones were dispatched to monitor the site from above. Within 2 days, federal agencies arrived, quietly unmarked vehicles, scientists in hazmat suits. The pond was placed under full quarantine. The rest of the reserve was closed indefinitely. Locals were told it was due to a toxic algae outbreak, but those who had lived near Oakwood their entire lives whispered different theories. Some said it was an ancient parasite awakened by climate shifts. Others believed something had fallen from the sky weeks earlier during a lightning storm, something no one had ever found. And Scott, he never spoke of the eggs again. But sometimes late at night, he walks the edge of the reserve, just beyond the sealed perimeter, and listens. Sometimes when the wind is low and the forest is silent, he swears he hears faint ripples on still water, and something moving beneath the surface.